In today's video, I will show you how to make these mixed media berries in beautiful autumn colors. As you know, I love to challenge myself sometimes to use as many of my art supplies as possible, and what is better way to do that than creating a mixed media piece. I will be showing you the different art supplies I'll be using throughout the video, and I have also everything listed in the description box below, so you can check all the details there if you are interested to know which colors and which mediums I'm using here. I will first start by making a very kind of initial sketch with some watercolor pencils, and the reason I'm using watercolor pencils is that they will later be then kind of disappearing magically from paper. Of course, we'll be adding so many layers in this piece that you could very well do sketch also with just some regular pencil or colored pencils, but I love and enjoy using my very soft, beautiful watercolor pencils for this one. At first, the sketch will look really extremely messy and weird. That is because I like to first add kind of different shapes and then decide which berry or which leaf is in front of the others. So that's why I'm making this kind of sketch which looked like some sort of weird word map with some red circles in it. But it will soon all make sense. Trust me and follow with me, along with me, as I kind of create something beautiful out of this a bit of messy looking start. We will then start working on the background, and I will first add a layer, a very thin layer of Inktense pencils in background, using quite a lot of water to mix them together. But at this point, it's okay if there are still some pencil marks, and I mean, at any point, it's of course okay to have the texture visible, but at this point, I'm just kind of blocking the background and adding the first layer of color there. The sketchbook I'm using here is Hahnemuhle's Nostalgia, and it is not handling too much wet medium, so be careful if you're using the same kind of sketchbook that if it's not meant for watercolors or other water-soluble mediums, it might be a bit of a challenge. Just make sure you're not using too much water and you should be fine. Next, I will be adding the base layer of color for the berries and leaves, and that I'm doing with Ecoline brush pens. And here I'm using color Carmine as my kind of base for the red berries, and then I will of course also make base layer for the leaves, and there I will be using grass green and saffron yellow. I find myself not reaching these brush pens enough. I really enjoy them. I enjoy using them for kind of my sketchbooks and adding this kind of base layer of color and then working on top of that with some colored pencils. I think it's a really nice combination and very easy mixed media combination. But for some reason I don't use these that much, and that's why I wanted to challenge myself today to use them in this piece. And they glide beautifully on this paper and they build a beautiful base layer of color. So if you want to try your brush pens, if you want to give your brush pens a bit of a kind of attention today, join me and make this kind of initial base layer with them. I'm pretty sure you will not regret later. I want to have different colors of leaves in this piece, and that's why I'm having this very intense contrast with the kind of, I would say very autumnal, bit burnt orange kind of color, kind of very brownish orange, and then I have that beautiful green, which is actually very spring-like, but we will start adding layers on top of it very soon, and then you will see that it actually all makes sense. Next, it's time to add the next layer, and for that I will be using the Derwent Inktense pencils. I have a nice color selection of colors that I've chosen for autumnal season, and here is just I'm using some of them in this piece. As said, I will have all the colors and supplies listed in the description box below, so you can check the details there if you are interested. But the basic idea here is that I will be mixing different colors on paper, adding that kind of interest that way. And you can see that I'm having this kind of very good brush technique, or not good brush technique, but my brush technique for using brush in these kind of Inktense drawings and paintings is that I like to kind of move the pigment around here and there, dab the color, give it kind of very interesting and varied texture. And that you can do because, of course, this kind of smooth paper, it is very easy to just move that pigment around on the paper. But I think it gives you very interesting details and textures. And of course, if you look at the leaves in nature, none of them is perfect as such. They don't look very much alike. Each of them has their own little character, especially during the autumn months when the color starts to change and we get these very beautiful, unique colors and textures. So that's why I also love to use Inktense for this kind of art. It's so easy to give that interest and build the interesting layers. So this is the basic technique that I will be using with the leaves and also with the berries. So I will leave you to enjoy the process for a bit and get back to explaining my next steps when we get there. So this is what the drawing looks like at this point. And next I wanted to give more attention to the background of this. So I will now start adding some pan pastel on top of that first layer of Inktense pencils. The pan pastel I'm using here is this beautiful kind of yellowy green. Just be kind of cautious whenever you're using pan pastels. Do your background research and be careful, because it's not healthy to breathe the colors and the pigments, and there might be some pigments that might be in some cases a bit harmful for your health. So just kind of disclaimer that please do your background research before using this medium. But I absolutely love pan pastels, especially for these kind of blurry backgrounds, and I like how very well they work on top of other mediums. Of course, I could have also just started with pan pastels and left that first layer of Inktense pencils totally out of this. But yeah, today this is kind of the method and process I'm working with, and I really like the outcome. When we have the layer of Inktense, you can see those strikes and pencil marks still a bit, and I just love what kind of interesting texture that brings. And I'm also using pan pastel here so that I'm not adding it everywhere, and I'm just adding these kind of splash of color here and there, which I think also brings some interest. I'm also adding some red because we want to give the impression that either there are more berries somewhere in the background, or there might be just some beautiful autumn colors. So be bold and test and try, and just remember it's your sketchbook and you can actually try out anything. It might not always work, but very often it actually works. And if it doesn't look good, maybe it's not done yet. Maybe it needs more work. So don't give up even if you have those ugly faces during the process. Next, I will be using my Derwent Drawing pencil. This is a beautiful earthy green tone, and I'll be using that to define the leaves and kind of, give a bit more definition. So we will now start adding even more details with the colored pencils, and this will be, in a way, the final layer of this little sketch. And even though we don't want it to be too defined and too details, I still think it's nice to kind of define a bit of the shapes and give a bit contrast and shadows with colored pencils. So that's what we will be doing next. And you will see me use here kind of a mixture of Derwent Drawing, Inktense, and also Faber-Castell Polychromos, which is my other favorite pencil to use. So I'll be using lots of different pencils here, just what I have at hand and whichever range has the colors that I will be needing. As a final touch, I also want to add some white, and this Derwent Drawing white, it goes beautifully on top of all these layers and just give the highlights and show where the sun might be shining from or where the light is coming from to these berries and leaves. I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and I hope that you've enjoyed watching the kind of mixed media process that I like to have whenever working on my sketchbook. I just really was gravitating towards creating some mixed media piece today, so that's why you also got to see this video. Please let me know if you've been working on some fall or autumn subject matters this week. I'd be very happy to hear what kind of art you've been making, and if you've enjoyed the mixed media or maybe something else. Maybe you've been working with watercolor or crayons, who knows? But please let me know. Be very happy to hear that. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to my channel. I'd love to have you part of my small community here. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like so that I know that you want to see more videos like this also in the future. I hope that you will enjoy your own art journey, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Bye for now.